What's good, friends list? Episode 44 of the Gamecast coming at you. PC gaming continues to be a staple in Microsoft's commitment to the future of gaming, and with its first PC exclusive release with this in Gears Tactics, it really makes you think about where consoles will be by the end of the upcoming generation. So, this week, Mike and I talk about what the future of PC gaming is for Microsoft and how their commitment to making Xbox a platform across multiple outlets plays into it. Also, Phil Spencer states that the jump to next-gen feels as dramatic as 2D to 3D, but how so? Plus, new rumors for upcoming releases from WB Montreal have emerged, including new details on WB Montreal's Batman game, the next entry in IO's Hitman franchise, and more. Will we get confirmation on them soon? All of this, and much more, on the newest episode of the Gamecast.
Now the fun begins.
Budget.
Stop! You violated the law.
Welcome back to another episode of the Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox, Xbox Game Pass, and PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn cool video games. You can catch new episodes of the show each and every Friday morning, if I can talk straight, on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us wherever you get one and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games, like our dope giveaways and whatnot. It's becoming apparent with, and it's weird because I'm talking more in terms of, well, as always, I'm your host, Travis White, aka Travis on most internet platforms, don't want to forget that. But it's becoming more apparent that I'm talking so much more over, like, on a microphone more comparative to usual, I guess. Like, I mean, I'm gaming more just because I'm home more, I'm using comms more in general, that it seems like I'm tripping up more whenever I'm doing, like, you know, intro reads and whatnot like that. Like, I don't know why. You would think it's the opposite way. Like, oh, I'm reading and saying what I'm reading, basically. That you would think with that being so much more active that I'd be much better at that. I'd be much snappier at that. But no, I'm just a fucking idiot, and, you know, shit just works backwards in my brain, so maybe I shouldn't just fucking read anything, I guess. Joining me as always, my partner in crime, my co-host, Mike P-Pack. Mike, what's good, what's going on, and what have Yins been playing?
I've been good, man. Just, you know, getting adjusted to the new normal, I suppose. The weather's
You got the
starting to
golf for the
change.
first time in how long? The other day?
I did the first time in a couple months, since I got back from Vegas, basically. So pretty sweet to actually get out there and you know, put the clubs to use a little bit and just get some fresh air. But the weather's starting to change, so I'm sure people will be outside a lot more. At least around where we live, the weather's starting to get better.
Yeah, and it's nice too. Like, you know, you're like me, you and Kristen, you know, try to get a walk every day. I go out, I take the dog for a nice long walk every morning just to make sure I get out, unless it's, you know, fucking raining, which it's supposed to be raining this whole week, and it's rained like twice. Which is kind of fucked up a lot of stuff.
I mean,
I'm like,
it's Pennsylvania weather, man. Like,
yeah, the weatherman
like
can just
it's a
fucking blindfold
crapshoot.
and throw a dart on there, and he's got at least a 50-50 chance of it being right. Like, he's gonna say it's raining, it's gonna be like a fucking heat wave. If he says it's going to be a heat wave, it's going to be a fucking blizzard. Like, it just is what it is. That's Western PA. But enough of that nerd shit, you know, golfing and whatnot, being socially active and whatnot in person. And we're talking introverted shit. We're talking video games. We're talking good games. Mike, tell me about what good games you've been playing.
Yeah, so I basically have been playing a little bit less Valorant, just overall. The same 3 maps gets kind of boring.
It is
you
getting
know,
a little boring, but the hooks got me. I love
Yeah,
it.
I mean, it's fun.
still fucking fun. It's so fun, except for whenever you get, you know, teammates who, one, don't talk, or two, just don't play the game like it's meant to be.
Insta-lock,
I get
Jet,
really
Phoenix,
fucking pissed.
and Raze
Yes.
instantly.
100%. Or you just don't get a Sage on your team, which is literally, like, it should be required. You have to have a Sage on your team. Like, you need to have a healer when you play Overwatch, period. Like, for the way that the game is structured, like, you need Sage to succeed, bar none. But continue, by all means.
Yeah, so a little bit less of Valorant, but I've been playing. I've been getting back into CS a little bit lately.
Hmm.
So playing a little bit more CS:GO. Not like practicing hard like I was. Like I'm not getting on in death matching or anything crazy, but
Hmm.
just playing wingman or matchmaking here and there, just kind of introducing it back into my palette. But we recently just started a Divinity 2 playthrough last night, which
Hmm.
was really fun, and I'm looking forward to getting involved with that game a little bit further. But outside of that, nothing too crazy. Just waiting for some new stuff to come out.
Hmm.
Wasn't really interested in anything that has come out yet, as far as now that I bought my PC.
Hmm.
But we're definitely looking forward to Cyberpunk and some other games that might be coming out here in a bit. And
Yeah.
this seems like a perfect time for a lot of devs while the social distancing stuff to go on is going on. Um, it seems like a perfect time for them to work on some reworks, or if they ever had a remaster in their, you know, in their future, it seems like the perfect time to maybe not start a whole new project, but perfect one that they've already done. So we'll see if that's what happens going
Yeah.
forward. But definitely excited to see, what they come out with here.
No, that's actually that's a good thought process to have. And I'm curious if, and by all means, game development hard. It's not easy. And especially now doing it remotely. Who knows if the proper equipment was able to be taken home. PCs that are powerful enough to develop on, were able to be taken home, or their home rig is able to run that. Because I would imagine most people who are working on the programming, designing, etc., etc., and of the game, the hard development of it, that they would probably have that equipment available at home. At least if they're able to take it home from the office, I would imagine. But now is that time where you could, I'm curious if we see more of that come out eventually. Of hey, a full 5-year project, that we're looking at, and even in some cases, anywhere from 4 to 7 years, we're looking at a development cycle on major AAA games. Hey, why don't we hold on that, or why don't we hold production on that for right now? We've been working on this side project for right now that is, we're just remastering a game, and it isn't obviously like, how some people are like, well, just bring it to Switch, just port it on over, just hit the port button and it works. No, it's obviously not like that, but, logically thinking, if you're upscaling and you're redesigning some textures and, making the game more optimized for current gen consoles, taking a game from a 360, a PS3 might be a little bit hard due to the cell processing unit, but if you're taking something that was established last gen and bringing it forward, and we're actually gonna kind of talk a little bit about that in the jump of technology in one of our news articles, but it's a it's a thought process that kind of makes a lot of sense, because you would think, comparatively speaking, to a brand new IP from the ground up game that you're looking at a 4 to 7 year development cycle, doing a remaster along those lines could be pretty logical to at least get something out there, something that fans of a certain series that may be a cult classic or something like that, that you can release digitally, instead of worrying about, oh man, we got to get this in on store shelves whenever. You don't necessarily need that. It could be a Steam release. It could be just a Xbox, marketplace release, something like that. Kind of makes sense that, we may see that actually come in the pipeline a little bit quicker comparative to brand new releases. So I like that thought process. That's a really interesting thing to kind of think about. But on my end, I'm kind of with Mike. Like he was saying, we did start a playthrough of Divinity, him, Adam, and I. It's been something we kind of talked about for a long time, and we kind of all wanted to jump in there because we all really love traditional RPG experiences, isometric ones, especially from us playing Diablo back in the day, and even currently still. So jumping into Divinity Original Sin 2 has always seemed like a good place for us to get in at. It's a very easy game in terms of jumping in from a lore standpoint. It makes a lot of sense. You're starting fresh. It's very easy to jump in and just kind of be engulfed in that world, and we're still very early on, but I'm really enjoying my experience so far. I like the take on turn-based combat, where it's the fluidity of it is much more, it feels just much more modern compared to traditional turn-based RPG experiences, like your Pokemon, your Dragon Quest, etc., etc. Traditional Final Fantasy. So it's one of those things that really, I think, brings in a whole new audience of people who sometimes are scared off by turn-based combat, where it's like it gets kind of repetitive, it gets kind of boring, and while people say, oh, the tactical approach is there, I do agree to that, but it really feels like Divinity kind of reaches the perfect mix of that, where it has that Fire Emblem element almost of tactical strategy on top of the RPG elements. So I'm really enjoying it so far. I really like the lore. The soundtrack's fucking awesome. I'm really excited to kind of jump in and play through that with these guys. But on top of that, I've been playing a lot of Valorant too. Mike kind of talked about that before. We talked about that a few weeks ago whenever the game first came out in its closed beta. They're adding ranked play today. I'm excited about that, even though it's probably going to be a shitstorm day one, just with so many people flooding ranked. I think there's going to be a lot of toxicity at times, whether it's from good players, bad players, and everywhere in between. So it's going to be very interesting. But outside of that, yeah, I've been looking at a couple of games in my backlog that might chip away at. I might jump back into Dishonored. I'm interested in kind of getting back into that series because I've always loved the concept of that. So that's kind of on the table as we now are in yet another holding pattern, like Mike was saying, for releases for the most part. I know this is an Xbox show. I feel like I say that every week, but the big games that are coming out, Last of Us Part 2 finally got a new release date that I'm sure they announced earlier than they wanted to after leaks of the whole game basically started coming out. So that's been on lockdown for the most part on my end with muted words and stuff on Twitter. But games like that are now coming in June and stuff, we're kind of in that holding pattern for big single player games. So now it's that time where I take in, if Kyle wanted to play Warzone, I probably wouldn't play it with him, but I'd at least think about it. If I wanted to jump in and play, different things that are more live service games, like, multiplayer heavy games, like a Valorant, like a CS, like things like that I can jump on either my Xbox or my PC and play. Now's the time for that, especially with the current situation we're still in, that we're probably still going to be in for quite a while, in terms of a broad general speaking. So Mike, with that being said, let's jump into the news. Right now, there may be a news article that is added to this. Currently, the new Assassin's Creed game, the tease for it is being revealed. And the way it's being revealed is digital artist Boss Logic. He does a lot of commissioned work for movie companies, game companies. He's big in the nerd culture sphere for putting out these custom art pieces. They hired him to basically do a live stream to reveal the artwork for the game and what it's going to look like. A lot of people are saying it's Assassin's Creed Vikings, or codename Ragnarok, which is dope. So if that kind of drops while we're talking about stuff, I'll probably just kind of shove it in where we get it. But that right now it's not on there, it's not complete yet, so I don't know how the fuck long it's going to take them. But hey, if it does drop during this, great, I'll get it in there. If not, a new Assassin's Creed game is coming out. Fucking shocker. There's one that comes out every year still, basically. So anyways, Mike, let's get into the actual news that's out right now. And first one coming up here, Xbox boss says Series X upgrade will feel, quote, as dramatic as 2D to 3D, which is pretty hefty to say the least. So this comes from Andy Robinson over on Video Game Chronicle. Xbox boss Phil Spencer has said he believes that the upcoming console generation will change the feel of games, quote, as dramatically as any since 2D to 3D. Spencer made the comment in a Twitter reply on Monday in which he stated that the Xbox Series X's CPU upgrade, dynamic latency input, memory bandwidth, and SSD would all contribute to a significant shift in how games are played. In particular, Spencer said that he was, quote, very focused on the work Xbox is doing around latency. Xbox Series X is set to introduce a number of features designed at reducing latency, which is the measurement of how long it takes for a piece of data to travel from one point to another in a system, usually measured in milliseconds. Analog inputs such as stick and trigger movement usually has an input delay of 8 milliseconds on previous Xbox consoles. However, Xbox claims that Series X will all but eliminate this and send the most up-to-date controller data to the console just before it's needed by the game. In addition, the controller will now consistently monitor for and transmit button state changes, while the input stack on the console itself has been completely redesigned. Quote, while it may be difficult to notice the improved latency from any one of these improvements alone, When they all add up, it makes for a profoundly more responsive experience for players. Xbox said on its official news site in March. Xbox boss Spencer suggested last week that the platform holder will showcase Xbox Series X games in the near future. Asked about these plans for the Xbox Series X software reveals on Twitter, Spencer said that there won't be, quote, too much of a wait before Microsoft shows off some more next-gen titles. Has been claimed Microsoft is planning Xbox Series X reveal in May, and we kind of touched on that last week. So, when we talk about the leap to next-gen, it could really mean a lot of things, not just, hey, Game Y looks better than Game X now, which, we've seen not work out so well for gorgeous games such as The Order 1886 on, PS4 when it was first revealed. People were so stoked on it because of its cinematic approach and its just gorgeous graphics and lifelike graphics. And that was in 2015, and the game came out, and it was not what people would hope for. So it's still a beautiful looking game. I actually played it like 6 months ago and really enjoyed my time with it because I took it for what it was, a basically 4 to 5 hour experience that looked dope, but that's it. So while we've been waiting to see what exactly that is, I don't think we've ever really discussed it ourselves. So Mike, what does next gen mean to you? What is the most important achievement, or advancement really, I guess I should say, that you feel needs to be made going from our current generation to the release of the new consoles later this year? What is the most important aspect of all of that needs to transcend and take us forward with our gaming?
I think when we're talking about going to the next generation, for me, I'm looking at something like reliability of servers. So I know we've had a lot of issues with Xbox Live going down and PlayStation Online going down and things of that nature. And I know that's just normal because there has to be maintenance at some point in time, and there's going to be issues. I mean, it's technology. There's going to be issues at times. Oh, yeah. But I think a lot of people, have really noticed specifically with the implementation of the Xbox Windows app, and kind of if I play Smite with with my brother and a couple of our other buddies, and a couple of them are on Xbox, and we're in an Xbox Live party. Sometimes, like, me being on PC to them being on Xbox, like, the party system doesn't work correctly, and sometimes my friends list just won't even load on my Xbox, or for my Xbox, right? So if I open the Xbox Console Companion app and I look for my Xbox Live friends, it just won't generate them. So I think a big thing with next gen, specifically with Microsoft and Xbox, is that continuity between PC and Xbox being polished. I think that's something that we're going to see, and it's something that we need to see if they want to stay relevant. I mean, they've pretty much positioned themselves that Xbox and PC are going to go hand in hand, so I'm excited to see that. I have noticed, when I did play Smite on Xbox a little bit, you can plug in your mouse and keyboard to your Xbox and play with that input on Xbox, so I thought that was very interesting.
How is that? Because I've heard, now Xbox made a big deal about that because, and we're going to kind of talk about this a little bit later in the show in a little bit deeper aspect, but, Microsoft has been really committed to the bringing in and really making it ties all into their, hey, we want to make a platform that is Xbox, not just a console, not just PC gaming. We want it all across the board. We want it interchangeable for the most part. And they've done a really good job at doing that with things like this. They partnered with Razer to make, technology, keyboard and mouse peripherals that you can just get that are designed to specifically work with your Xbox. And you don't necessarily need that. You can go and just get as long as the technology can fit and you have a certain keyboard that can, go through USB to connect in there, same with your mouse, that you could use it for certain games. I've just never had any hands-on experience with that. What is that like? Have you tried that at all?
Yeah, I thought the only thing that I, have to comment on it is when I was playing Smite, that's the only game I've really experimented with it. It did seem like there might have been a little bit of an input delay, but also I was used to playing on a 144 hertz and that many frames on my PC. So I think it naturally feels like there is input delay because on PC, I'm playing on 144 hertz and 144 frames, 144 hertz monitor. It just seems like on the 60, it made it feel like there was input delay, but it was literally just I think it was just the 60 hertz affecting me. So that's kind of, I thought it was pretty solid. I mean, you just plug and play. It was pretty easy. So I didn't really have an issue with it at all. I thought it was cool that you can't change the settings that you're playing on mid-game. You have to select before the game starts.
Hmm.
So you can't go in as like a controller player and then match up against, because in a Smite you match up against other players that have your input style. And then
Hmm.
if you have a mixed party, it'll mix the party for you. So you can't go into a controller ranked game and then switch to mouse and keyboard and just start dumping on people. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I thought that was pretty cool. No, it was definitely enjoyable, and I'm excited to see what they do with the Series X to see, how they push that boundary because I know they're focused on 60 frames, plus. Like they're
Hmm.
talking about going up to 120 with some experiences.
Hmm.
So I'm excited to see like what they do with that and what the input or what the output is going to be because they're going to continue to do HDMI, but
Hmm.
if they wanted to do higher refresh rates, they're going to have to
Right.
include DisplayPort.
Hmm.
So I think that'll be interesting. I think moving away from HDMI is the standard because DisplayPort will transport sound also. I
Hmm.
think that's something that I'm looking forward to. Them moving on just from HDMI because it is a little HDMI is great, don't get me wrong, but compared to um, DisplayPort,
Yeah.
it's lacking. Another thing I would think of besides like just server stability and everything of that nature,
Hmm.
I just think overall a more the UI. I know when we're talking about home screens from like the original Xbox 360 home screen
Hmm.
that were like shelves that you had to shuffle through
Yeah.
to now it's a lot more reasonable and it's a lot easier to use, but I still think the Xbox One operating system, like
Oh, it's
I still
horrible.
think it's a bit confusing. Yeah, exactly. I think that they could
100%. I mean, most Microsoft UI for the most part, outside of just Windows in general. I mean, Windows in general, it has its annoyances with the Cortana voice assistant and shit like that. Like nobody fucking cares about that shit. Nobody really uses that outside of people who have accessibility needs, which is totally
Mhm.
fine and that's great that it's there. But it shouldn't be on there right out the gate, if you ask me. But it should be, it shouldn't interfere with day to day, day to day uses, I guess. But the Xbox One has the same exact problem where there's so much just bloat on it. There's so much just random bullshit that's involved with it. And Sony suffers from that from time to time with certain UI changes they make with ads on certain, parts of their dashboard and whatnot. But at least with theirs, everything is all on one page. Everything is right there. You know exactly where everything is. It has folders made for you that you can put stuff in directly, that it's all in one. You don't have to sort through 10 different things to get there. And I agree with you that the 360, I thought, did a better job at that, at least even right off the gate, where, okay, you can visibly see, at least, okay, there's 5 slides on here that I could shift between. Games, media, yada yada, like, it's right there. Where Xbox, you're kind of going it in blind with it, and the Xbox Store in general fucking doesn't work half the time whenever you try to load something on it, or it charges you twice, and it's a pain in the ass, like all of it is. And that's kind of one of my things too with it. But you kind of nailed my biggest one, which was the frame rates. That there's, and I've talked about this before, but especially now over the past 4-5 years or so, where I've gotten more into PC gaming than I was previously. I've become so accustomed, like you. I play on 144 hertz monitor. I'm getting at least 144 frames on most games that I play on, high settings or whatever you play it at. Especially if I'm playing an FPS, I'm usually dropping down lower to get as many frames as possible. But it's, if we're going that direction, I have a lot of questions because one, we have trouble already in this gen currently just getting 1080 30. I mean, there's at the beginning of the gen, the Xbox One was putting out 720 in some games and struggling to get 30. And it's like, we're talking about 60 frames per second, which, and me personally, I thought by now we'd be at the point where we are doing 1080p 60 most, especially on these half gen refreshes that we have with the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro. I figured that'd be at the point we're at. If we could do 1080 60 on pretty much all games that are, have the updates for them and unlock frame rates to an extent, they get you to 60 at least, let's put it at that, capping at 60. that is how most games are meant to be played, in my opinion. Now, granted, they could change to some games, are meant to be more cinematic, and that's when it all comes into the cinematography of how things are being shot and whatnot, that, 30 frames per second is the more, or whatever it is, 29.97 is like the cinematic approach or whatever. But if you're playing actual gameplay, nothing beats 60 frames per second, at bar none. Like, for a minimum, in my opinion. That, like you're saying too, if Microsoft's saying, hey, we're with the Xbox Series X, which I don't think they're bullshitting when they say, hey, we could do 4K native on this, 4K or 4K 60 native on this, bar none, and potentially up to 120. I don't think they're necessarily bullshitting on that. This thing's got teraflops out the wazoo. Like, it's got the power behind it that I don't think they're bullshitting necessarily from, they're not going to come out and just flat out lie and say, hey, you can do this, and whenever you get home, you take it in, and somebody, Digital Foundry's going to, like, fucking test it and shit that, they're not going to be like, well, they were fucking lying, and no, you can't do this. You gotta, there's truth behind it, But how are we going to achieve that with, like you're saying, HDMI? HDMI is the very universal method to getting a high definition picture in today's day and age, which is great. It works great for TVs. It works great for basic computing. It works great for if you're just wanting to play something at 1080 60 on your screen, playing your PC or whatever. That's totally fine. There's no issue with that. But it's whenever you get to this higher frame rates, because one, you have to have a TV that supports, if you want to actually physically get those frames and see the difference with those frames, you have to have a TV or a monitor that supports a higher refresh rate. Could be, 90, it could be 120, it could be 144, it could be 240. Like, you need to have that, but more importantly, HDMI doesn't support that. When HDMI 3 comes out, or whatever it is, 3 or 4, whichever the one they're at now, there's the potential to support that, but right now, for the foreseeable future, it doesn't have that, and I don't think it's going to go up to 120. That, the only way you're going to be able to get that is through DisplayPort, and right now, that thing doesn't have a DisplayPort, output on it that you can connect a TV to or monitor to. So, there needs to be some answers to that, and so far I haven't seen any. Correct me if I'm wrong, by all means, feel free to reach out to me, DMs, whatever, comments on the YouTube version or whatever. Please, I would love to. I honestly just want to know, so I know when I'm going to buy this thing. And they're saying when I'm playing Halo Infinite, I can get 120 frames potentially or whatever, even if I set to 1080. Cool. Like, I want to try to get that because I'm so, like you, Mike, accustomed to high frame rates playing PC games recently. So it's,
that's something that I think is another big part of next gen.
Mm-hmm. That's what next gen is to me. That's more just to kind of round out my point, and by all means you can continue with yours. My next gen to me is optimization and its frame rates. We're at the point that even really, I mean, granted, by all means, there has been a graphical leap from last gen to this gen. But look at games like Halo 4 from last gen. That game was fucking beautiful. And that game was an Xbox 360, granted, a late Xbox 360 game, a year before, the Xbox One came out. But that game was still fucking gorgeous for a late gen, title release for that platform. Like, granted, there are some games that show their age, but the graphical leap wasn't anything from, PS1, N64 to PS2, GameCube-esque. Like, there wasn't anything that major, or even Super Nintendo to N64. Like, we haven't gotten that jump. Like, we didn't experience that jump. We were basically refining high-definition play. And that's why I say, like, man, I was expecting by this point we'd be close to 1080-60 on all games across the board, at least with these mid-generation refreshes we got with the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro. So, to me, next gen now means, okay, a dedication from developers, and putting that onus on developers to say, hey, this is what we want. Our system is going to be touting frame rates. It's offering a PC experience. If, we want you to be here. We want you to put your games out on here because we want to support you, support us, hopefully, by, at least getting to that. We're giving you all the tools in the world. Try to find a way to have, capping frame rates from the low end. Try to see if you can get frame rate caps at least 1080-60 on all your games. So, who knows if that will work. Not putting pressure on devs, whatever. I understand game development's hard, but it's the scalability of it, I guess. And that's what I'm hoping, that we have optimization and scalability. That's next gen to me from a console standpoint. So go ahead, though. Continue, Mike.
No, yeah. I mean, you kind of hit the nail on the head. Like, I think it comes down to stripping the like the actual like UI that they're going to use, whether it's going to be an operating system or whatever they're going to consider it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to strip it from all the bloat and bullshit that you normally put on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you need to go to a more just like kind of streamlined approach to how you're presenting the material, the game, and just your friends list, everything that Xbox brings to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think you just need to strip that down a little bit and give us the option. Like, I'm not saying give us the full customization that I get on my PC, because I obviously know that's not going to be ideal or maybe even possible on some experiences. But
Mm-hmm.
if I go into a shooter game, whether it be Halo, Call of Duty, whatever, I would like the option of like, do you want to, cinematic experience? Do you want, visuals? Is that important to you?
Mm-hmm.
Middle of the road? Do you want somewhere in between visuals and performance, or do you strictly want performance?
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if you only gave me those three options, that's light years better than not having the option. Like, if I could just pick performance and it would strip some of the extras out of the game that I don't necessarily need, especially when it comes to a game like COD or Halo.
Mm-hmm.
Like, sure, maybe in the campaign I'd want, a little bit more of a cinematic experience because the frame rates aren't as important. But when I'm playing multiplayer, I don't really care what the maps look like. I mean, I do, but by and large, like, I just want the game to work. Right. I want it to perform as high as possible. Mm-hmm. So give me that option. I think that's something big that we're going to see going into the next gen, and I hope we do see that going into the next gen.
Yeah.
And you kind of briefly touched on it,
mm-hmm.
but I'd like to see the expansion, and I think Microsoft's doing a great job getting set up for it. Again, we've talked at length about how Microsoft has positioned themselves going into the next gen,
mm-hmm.
but just strictly like the accessibility features that they have added to Xbox have been fantastic. Mm-hmm. But I think they have an opportunity to really push the envelope in the next generation. And I would really like to see them go further with accessibility and basically making the games more accessible for everyone, even those who may be handicapped in one way or the other, or, not able to, whether, it's missing a hand or whatever the case may be,
mm-hmm.
just being able to get those people involved in gaming on
those
a more
simple
even
motor
scale.
Skills that limit them to a lot of other,
exactly.
entertainment, aspects that, like you're saying, Microsoft has been at the forefront of that, making their adaptive controller and finding ways to bring more people into gaming, period. Like, they let them, they're very open of letting them, like, there were videos, I believe it was a girl who was, had a disability, who was able to, her parents were able to find a way to get the Xbox One adaptive controller to work with the Nintendo Switch. And Phil Spencer tweeted about it. He was like, this is so awesome. Like, this is what
mm-hmm.
we want. Like, they're cool with that. Like, they're wanting to push that forward. And obviously so, they're coming, like we talked about before, coming from behind this generation. They fucking got their ass whooped this generation right out the gate. So they're playing from behind. They're doing a lot of consumer-friendly approaches to everything they do. Game Pass, my God, look at it. So, they're doing these things that are trying to be consumer-friendly to win back that public faith. But something like that is just much more transcendent than just a console war or anything like that. So, totally agree. Mike, let's head into our next news article here. And this is more of kind of, rumor has it again. And, rumors are just so rampant anymore, just given everything that's going on. More news, if anything, is delays anymore of things being pushed, movies, games in general, like dates being changed around and whatnot. But so rumors in general are starting to really take a rise, and especially as we get closer to the reveal of both next-gen consoles. This one's a good one, though. Rumor claims Hitman 3, the new WB Batman game that we always fucking talk about, and Injustice 3 are coming. This comes from Matthew Wilson via Kit Guru. As always, with all the articles that we have, if you're new to the show, we have them, links in the description. Please, especially now, given everything that's going on during the pandemic, please click on these links. Give it a read on there, because we do read a lot from here, and sometimes it is like close to the whole article just because there's a lot of context that needs to be being brought into it. But if you can, please at least give them a click. These views, these clicks, they really matter to journalists who are working through this right now, and a good thing to show, hey, we could take this to X sponsor and say this is how many clicks you get, and that's how they get a lot of their money in through ad revenue and whatnot. So please, if you can, get some clicks on there. That would really help them out, especially given everything that's going on in the economic crisis we're facing as well too. So anyways, much happier things. Video games. Let's talk about them. With E3 now canceled for 2020, we are all wondering what some of the large publishers will be doing for their announcements. An earlier report on WB Games suggested that Harry Potter and Rocksteady's next project were due for announcements, but new rumors indicate a wide slate of games, including new games in the Batman, Hitman, and Injustice franchises. The new rumor claims that Hitman 3 will be coming in holiday 2020 as the finale for IO's reboot trilogy. Deluxe editions of Hitman 3 will include all content from the previous 2 games, bringing a ton of new content into one package. Next on the list is the new Batman game that WB Montreal has been teasing for months, which will apparently divert from the Arkham series but maintain its mechanics and gameplay. The rumor claims that the game will come in late 2020 with a larger version of Gotham City, multiple playable characters, and a wide cast of villains. Finally, Mortal Kombat 11 Aftermath is reportedly coming, which will be a new edition of the game containing previous DLC characters. New content is also apparently coming, including 2 new character packs, 6 new arenas, and 3 new story chapters. Most of what has been listed so far can be chalked up to safe guesses based on information we have. However, the post does diverge from another rumor a bit by adding supposed details on Injustice 3. This will apparently be NetherRealm's first next-gen release and will include characters like John Constantine, if I could talk, Huntress, Penguin, Dr. Manhattan, and oddly, Neo from The Matrix, although the game is apparently still a couple of years away from release. So, we've talked about the rumored Batman title from WB Montreal time and time again, obviously because it is real. It is definitely real, and everyone knows it, but I'm just also super fucking excited for the game. I love the Batman series, the Arkham series, and if they're taking the combat and mechanics from that, definitely want to get in on that, and especially the lore of Batman has always talked to me, and I've talked about that before, but I digress. What we really haven't spent too much time on, though, is WB's other titles that have rumors floating around them, such as Hitman 3 and Injustice 3. With Hitman 3 seemingly kind of sticking with its episodic release as it has been with its last 2 rebooted entries, Mike, do you think it will finally have the sales to back up its critical success finally? It's always suffered from, hey, it's gotten great reviews, but the episodic nature of it sometimes does hurt it. And with that being said, too, then sales do hurt from it because it's kind of like the Telltale or the Life is Strange model of, releasing, you get 1 chapter out now, that gets you, a couple hours of enjoyment, and then you gotta wait 2 months for the next entry. Also, too, as someone who really has played MK11 pretty heavily at one point, what about the Aftermath rumor excites you, and what does NetherRealm really need to take or leave from that Mortal Kombat entry to the next Injustice title? Since those games, the DNA of them are so intertwined with the fighting mechanics and whatnot, what do you feel they need to do and need to stay away from taking from the previous Mortal Kombat title that just released?
I think
because this
Hitman...
is Mortal Kombat is your area. I've played them lightly for the story or whatnot. I just fucking suck at fighting games, so I'm leaning on you for the intricacies of just fighting games in general, especially Mortal Kombat, because that's a game, a franchise that you're so intrinsically intertwined with, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's always been a huge part of my life, playing Mortal Kombat, so it's definitely normal. Basically, we'll start with the Mortal Kombat first, and then
Sure.
I'll go into my opinions on Hitman. So with Mortal Kombat, basically, if you're a person who hasn't played Mortal Kombat in a long time, and I'm talking like before X, like if you haven't played Mortal Kombat X at all, which would have been 10, this game, like if you were just to buy the new Mortal Kombat and play it, it's going to be very foreign to you. You're really not going to, recognize it. It's going to be so different from what you're used to as far as Mortal Kombat's. I mean, it's a lot different from the 3 other 3D Mortal Kombat's, because I feel like they did a really good job in 11 in going back to kind of, we'll say like they've done a really good job at finding a way to bring the 2D combat, so the side-scrolling stage combat that you're used to from
Mm-hmm.
Mortal Kombat 1, 2, 3, and kind of blending it with a 3D. There's no weapons. I mean, you can interact with the world around you,
Mm-hmm.
and things of that nature, but in some of the 3D iterations, you had a weapon class that you would go to, and you could like slash people with a sword, and it did a lot of damage, but you also took a lot of damage. Like all of that weird stuff, they kind of got rid of, which I think is probably for the best.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you're talking about what Mortal Kombat should focus on, I think the thing that people that let's say you're someone who hasn't played Mortal Kombat in a long time, or maybe even ever.
Mm-hmm.
I think what they did really well with 11 is the story mode. I think anybody could have picked that up and it was stellar. Like it was one of their best iterations of the story. And it's something that NetherRealm and the devs over that create Mortal Kombat have really not gotten enough credit for, is their dedication to creating a story-driven story mode that 11, for all intents and purposes, was basically like a harkening back to the first game. 10 was kind of a prequel to the first game in the first movie of Mortal Kombat, and
Mm-hmm.
11 was the first game in the first movie, basically. So um, it's been really cool to kind of play 11 and see what they did story mode wise. I'm really excited to see what they do with the 3 new story chapters. I'm really going to enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
I think the new content arenas is going to be great because people, that have still been playing the game, I'm sure are getting bored of playing the exact same arenas over and over again,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't really blame them. Um, the character packs, I think there is going to be a lot of older fans that want classic characters to come back.
Mm-hmm.
Smoke is one that everyone talks about wanting to see again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Another character is like Rain, which was kind of a niche character, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
that they want to see coming back. I think they need to do a good job at bringing some of those classics back, but also throwing some new blood into it, because that's what they've been focused on, bringing new characters into the fold, because it's a classic game and there's favorites for everyone, but you also have to push the boundaries and introduce new characters, and that's how your story is going to grow. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
excited to see what they do that way. The multiplayer and everything of that nature, they kind of got rid of a lot of the gimmicky stuff, which I enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the older 3D games from original Xbox, a game like Deception comes to mind, basically were how glitchy, well, not even glitchy, but it was basically just a juggle fest. If
Mm-hmm.
you kind of let yourself get up in the air, the other player is going to punish you and hit you with like a 60 damage combo, because the juggles were so ridiculous. And the combos were difficult, but once you memorized them, you could get someone up off the ground and now they have no defense and you can just beat the piss out of them as you're juggling, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they kind of got rid of the juggles and they did a really good job at balancing that, which I was excited for.
Mm-hmm.
They made the chain combos that you have to use to chain big combos together a lot more difficult to pull off, which was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they really need to focus on this single player that they're bringing, because that's going to bring new blood into the fold, because people don't want to get on, play multiplayer, get the hell beat out of them, and then they're never going to want to come back and play the game again. So
Mm-hmm.
if they're able to really do a great job with the story mode, which the original game was great. Like if you haven't played the story through Mortal Kombat 11, I recommend
Mm-hmm.
picking it up and giving that a go.
I've heard nothing but good things about the story from not only 10, but also in 11, obviously, too. But it seems like NetherRealm's really been taking they want to, at least in my opinion, and this is kind of looking from an outside because I played through 10, haven't played through 11 yet. I still need to pick up 11. I've been waiting for a good sale on that, just since I'm not like a balls deep fighter like fan.
Yeah.
I'm only gonna play through the story and play some like pickup matches or whatever from time to time. Nothing too crazy. I'm just not a big FGC guy, but I always hear about how great the story campaigns are for the past multiple NetherRealm releases, from 10 to Injustice 2 to now MK11, that it seems like they take the lore seriously. I mean, of course, with somebody like Ed Boon, who's been at the helm of Mortal Kombat for so long, taking that series that is a pop culture staple for the most part and trying to evolve that and really kind of take it to more than just, hey, bad guy fight bad guy, like it was back in the day for the most part. I mean, there were some, story elements that we get at the end of the fighting game if you beat the arcade game or the at-home system or the at-home port, but nothing like the level we're at now. We live in a world where, games are viewed as if equal, if not greater at times to, storytelling in entertainment mediums. Like that is such an integral point of, a purchase from somebody, that they want to buy something that talks to them and tells them a good story, whether it's, literal, like in a game like The Last of Us, or, even Halo to an extent, but it could also be nonverbal through environments, through, interacting and whatnot. And I feel like NetherRealm has found a good way to mesh the two when it comes to Mortal Kombat and Injustice as well, especially the second. I've heard it's a great, for what it is, like it is an excellent world building story for that world that those versions of DC characters are in. So it's not just Mortal Kombat, it's Injustice as well. But by all means continue, Mike. But to me, like that, I just keep hearing how good they are, and to me that just talks about not only do they care, but like they're wanting to evolve that series and almost break a stigma of just being like, oh, Mortal Kombat's just all fatalities and beating the piss out of each other. And it is, but like they take that in a fun approach that they can build a world around too, where it's not just, you don't know anything about these characters. It's Johnny Cage talking to Johnny Cage from the past, and there's time travel involved, and all of that shit. So by all means continue, but I just want to throw in that like it's so impressive to see that a franchise like that continues to evolve and become this new thing with each release.
Yeah, my thing is with Mortal Kombat, they've switched out parts as far as who has been there since day one. And you talk about Ed Boon and John Tobias and those guys back then, the Noob Saibot, it's their last names backwards, they added him in as a character, but they always, from Mortal Kombat 1, Mortal Kombat 2, and Mortal Kombat 3, when they were releasing arcade games, they were always the team that was pushing the envelope. What can we do with this technology? How far can we push this technology to not only release a quality game, but make sure while we're releasing quality content and the games are always going to be good, how far can we push it? And they've always been that type of studio. And Ed Boon, has been doing it for a really long time. And he's been the guy that's been there since day one. And I have, like you said, I am amazed at their commitment and his commitment to pushing the envelope, to always being better than he was the last iteration. And it's something that he could have went and rested on his laurels a long time ago. I mean, Mortal Kombat has made enough money that he doesn't have to make games anymore if he doesn't want to. But he seems like a guy that genuinely enjoys pushing the envelope. And like you said, just adding new spins onto this world and this realm, which is just great to see as a longtime fan and a guy who's played it since I used to play it on Sega in the arcade games when I was a kid. I mean, it's just nice to see them breathing new life into this series and making it more enjoyable, because I was someone who was starting to get pretty low on the franchise through the original Xbox games. It was something that I'd play through the story mode, but the fighting was getting so gimmicky when you would play against computers or go online. It was just not very fun. And they're doing their best to bring it back to, the top players are still going to be the top players, but newer players, you're not going to get juggled, and it felt like you were just getting glitched over and over again, and it's not that way anymore. But I haven't really played the Injustice because I'm not really a big comic book guy besides Batman, and I've never really played around with the Injustice games, but I know people that have, that really love it. And while they cut down on some of the mature content and the blood and the gore and stuff, which makes sense, you're doing a comic book game, and that's not really what comic books are all about, but they still put their Mortal Kombat and their flares in there, which I really enjoy, and I think it's really cool, and I'm excited that that's going to be their first game in the next generation, because it definitely feels like it's time for a new Injustice game, because there are fans out there that are clamoring for that. So I'm really excited to see what they do with that. Now going on to the next topic, which you kind of brought up 2 and 1, the Hitman 3. I definitely think that the episodic releases that these games do hurt them, because I was someone who, when The Wolf Among Us was coming out, and the Telltale, games were coming out, I was a guy that just waited till the end. I'm like, I don't want to play this episodically. I just want to get through it. I'm the type of person
that's exactly what Molly and I did for Life is Strange 2. That we loved Life is Strange 1. We both said, I was like, do you want me to buy it now? Do you want me to wait? And she was like, just wait till it's all done. She's like,
exactly.
Because I'm not necessarily a binger for TV shows. Like, I personally, it's weird. TV shows, I love when they're released on a weekly basis, because just as now an adult, like, I have a fucking life. Like, I have stuff going on that it's like, I can't commit all the time to sit down and, watch 10 hours of TV, back to back to back to back, or whatever. Like, I can't get through massive seasons of shows. Now, if they're 8-episode seasons or something, or 6-episode seasons, yeah, I could do that, like, in a couple days' time. That's no problem. But, like, somebody going through a whole series, like, where, even if it's a season where it's like, like, look at Life is Strange, I guess. You're playing maybe like 2 to 3 hour episodes. So that's an evening that you're looking at least. You're looking at, bar minimum an evening that you're going to play out of that. So it's like, okay, well, there goes, during a weeknight, like, me playing through this, it's going to take a little while. So it's like, for episodic ones, though, for games, I do like having that, because then they're just ready to go, like, waiting till the end, like, and getting it all. Where TV, it's a little bit different, but I guess that's maybe just how I prioritize my time. I'd rather play a game than watch TV.
Sure.
But I get what you're saying, that from a sales standpoint, it's hard to explain to a consumer comparative to TV, where Netflix has been so good at marketing what they are for so long, of literally knowing exactly what you're getting. Hey, the new season drops this date. And it's like, okay, I have all of it there. Cool. Where, Disney, at least because Disney in general is just so fucking big, they're able to just go and be like, hey, The Mandalorian, you're getting a new episode every Tuesday. Okay, cool. Like, because their reach is so far, where gaming doesn't have that reach yet. It's there, and it's reaching so many fucking people, but comparatively to these juggernauts, one developer and one publisher aren't going to have that same reach. It's not like, even, big guns like Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox, in terms of their exclusives they're reaching out, those still don't reach the same amount of people as fucking Netflix or Hulu or, insert media giant here. So it's so hard for them to get that messaging across, and especially an interactive medium like a game, where traditionally you're paying $60 for a full experience. If you know that off the bat, your upfront sales, hey, I'm only getting one episode right off the bat, but I'm paying $60 for this. Well, I don't know if I want to do that. I mean, like, I guess I'll wait for the game to come out at that point, and then at the end of the day, yeah, you can get in on it, and you can get it on a sale for a full season for $20 later on the day. Then that hurts the publisher on the back end, or the publisher and the developer on the back end, and they see how much cash is brought in at the end of the day. It doesn't necessarily matter about units, but how much cash that's brought in a certain situation like that it's like, do we want to even fund the next season? Like,
right.
But no, I'm with you. Like, I play more episodic games. Like, I love the Telltale games, and I'm so glad that they have new breath with them, with new ownership and whatnot. Like, I'm excited for the future of The Wolf Among Us 2. I'm excited for the future of Batman's Telltale series, because I personally really like it. So I'm excited for, and I think we will always need episodic adventures, but Hitman's so different from just a traditional episodic adventure, and I think it suffers from the same thing that Final Fantasy VII Remake suffered from when it was first announced that it would be, and they used the phrasing episodic, which shouldn't have been applied to that, because it's a totally different experience, where it's just the game is going to have multiple sequels to it. It's not going to be, it's a game told across 3 different games, like 40-hour experiences, where Hitman is very much episodic. You're getting one map, in 3 or 4 hours gameplay, and then you're waiting for the next season, 6 months later or whatever. So stuff like that to me really, really, really hurts from a PR standpoint. Telltale's a little bit different because it's mostly, a visual novel or an interactive story. It's not like Hitman is, and you're really familiar with the Hitman, series in general, that traditionally Hitman games, there's a lot of replayability with them. There's a lot to do with them, but it's a game that needs to have, needs to be a sum of all of its parts from the get-go, to me at least.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think, Hitman kind of takes it's a special game that takes a special player.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not the biggest fan of doing episodic releases like this.
Mm-hmm.
Games as a service is one thing that we've talked about at length. And this isn't a game as a service. This is episodic releases. There's a huge difference there, and I'm not the biggest fan of it. So I do think it'll hurt their sales right off the bat, because if I have to wait 6 months for the new series or new episode or whatever, like, why am I going to worry about spending the upfront cost? I'll just wait till it all comes out,
100% agree. Totally agree. So, Mike, let's head into our last news article, and it kind of ties into our big topic, I guess. Just because like I was saying, there's not a ton of news going on right now. It feels like the industry is just very much in a standstill right now, for good reason, obviously, with the pandemic and whatnot, but more so with, it seems like the gears are starting to shift, getting ready to shift up and go into next gen now, and kind of start their marketing plans and whatnot. And it seems both hardware manufacturers, Sony and Microsoft, are committed to launching in the fall, or holiday 2020. So you would think marketing plans are going to start soon. So it feels very much in a standstill. So really, I want to talk about Gears Tactics in PC gaming and Microsoft in general. So Sam Byford over on The Verge wrote this article titled "Gears Tactics and Game Pass show Microsoft is serious about PC gaming." And reading through it, it really kind of caught my attention because he makes a lot of really good points. And it's really that, what we kind of talk about, that transcending approach that Microsoft has as being a platform and not necessarily a system manufacturer or just doing one or the other type of thing. They have their hands in multiple jars. So I'm going to read a little bit of the excerpt. I picked out a couple of paragraphs here and a couple pieces of the story that I want to just kind of throw out there to the reader and you, just to kind of set the stage for a conversation. So, while Microsoft provides the operating systems used by the vast majority of PC gamers, it's fair to say that its attempts to build gaming services atop of Windows have often fallen flat. Initiatives like Games for Windows Live failed to take off, and for a while, Microsoft's overt presence in the PC gaming space was almost non-existent. These days, though, the company is putting its efforts into something that might actually work: Xbox Game Pass. The subscription service has been one of the best things about the Xbox One for years, and it's getting better on PC by the month. Quote, if we're being honest, there's been some fits and starts from the Microsoft perspective for PC gaming over the long history of the company, says Ben Decker, general manager of Xbox marketing. But PC gaming is really where Microsoft gaming at Microsoft started. And I think there's a deep commitment at the company to get it right and deliver something of real value to the PC gaming community. This week's launch of Gears Tactic, a turn-based take on the Gears of War series, is perhaps the most significant indicator of that so far. This is a high-profile, expensive-looking game and a marquee franchise from Microsoft, but it's in a genre traditionally associated with the PC, and it doesn't even have a version for Xbox One consoles yet. It's available on Game Pass for PC from day one, and Microsoft is also selling it on Steam. Quote, we're expecting it to be successful both places, Decker says, though he won't say how much Microsoft thinks the split will break down. Quote, when we talk about PC first, I think we're really just talking about the focus that we wanted to bring to the product and making sure that we are giving the PC gamer everything that they expect, says Mike Crump, director of operations at the Coalition, Microsoft's in-house studio that oversees the Gears franchise. Quote, PC gamers are a pretty demanding group generally, and we wanted to make sure that we had the appropriate level of focus to give them everything they expect. Everything from building the game to scale, where it can run well across laptops and machines without discrete graphics cards, all the way up to, for gamers that have invested in a very high-end gaming rig, delivering something that would be exceptional for them. Even in a vacuum, though, Microsoft Game Pass for PC is already an appealing service that's worth checking out. Gears Tactics is a significant signal of intent that's likely to draw more attention to Game Pass and how Microsoft will follow through with further releases. Quote, "It's not an experiment," Decker says. "It's really a commitment by Microsoft to get it right and bring something unique to the gaming space." So, kind of first off, Mike, do you have any interest in Gears Tactics? Just kind of throwing it right out there. It's gotten stellar reviews so far, and it really seems to be a good take on the XCOM formula. A lot of people have said, reviewers and people who have critically approached this game saying, it takes a really good formula from XCOM, but makes it very much home at Gears. And sure, there's some fluff in there, some side quests or side missions that, kind of just flesh. I don't want to say flesh out because it's a little more negative than that, but stretch the experience at times. But most of the side missions you do are worthy and they're worth your time to go through because you get good loot and whatnot. But it feels, a lot of people are saying the approach to this game and the strategical approach that it takes fits so well with that franchise, I guess is what I'm saying. So do you have any interest in playing this game? So this is on Xbox Game Pass and we all play on Xbox Game Pass.
Yeah, I mean, basically, if it
as a
wasn't
big Gears fan, I mean, you've been playing Gears since day one.
Yeah, I always enjoy the campaigns to all the Gears games. They're always pretty stellar. So for me, it's definitely something that, because it's on Game Pass, I'll definitely give it a whirl. Probably something I wouldn't just straight up buy, but since I have the opportunity just to download it for free with my Xbox Game Pass, then, well, not for free, but you know what I'm saying.
It's included in your membership, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely give this thing a go. It's definitely intriguing to see, what they're going to do. I think that this feels like a pretty good... I mean, you could have done this with Halo, too. I mean, you could have done it with any one of the games, but Gears definitely feels great because I think it's going to be interesting to put a campaign-style game like this into it, right? I think, the different storylines and everything that you can include is going to be fantastic. I'm excited to see what they do with it. I definitely feel like this is going to be a breath of fresh air for the franchise, and I think it'll be interesting to see what strategy and everything else that goes into it. I think it's going to have a lot of play from people. I don't know that it's going to be something that's going to be like world breaking that everyone's going to be like, oh my god, this is so great, you have to play it. But I think it's a nice little piece that they're going to add into it. It's going to be something to hold the flavor of Gears in your mouth until the next game comes out, which is going to wind up being on the next gen, and I think it's going to be awesome. So I'm excited to see what it's all about. I'm sure you're going to play it too because it's on Game Pass, and we'll just kind of not be... I'm not super stoked for it, but I'm also not like downplaying it. I'm just kind of
intrigued by it. You at least want to see what's up with it. You're going to give it a fair shake, and that's kind of how I am on it because I need particular... I'm very particular with the strategy games that I like. I like the XCOM style. I even liked it in the Mario plus Rabbids fucking game that they put on Switch that, like, surprisingly became, like, super, like, very well received critically and whatnot. Like, that nobody really thought, whenever people saw that release, or that it leaked, I remember, like, a couple years ago, people were like, the fuck is this thing? Like, why would they do this? It's so cringe. And then whenever they started showing gameplay and they're like, holy fuck, that's XCOM basically with Mario, and he has a fucking gun. Like, I want to get in on that shit. So it worked out really good, and the gameplay was actually really good and transitioned very well to that medium, or that IP. But, when I first saw they announced Gears Tactics, it was during, what was that, E3 2018? Yeah, because that was the same year that they announced Halo Infinite right off the bat. When they announced this, it was the first... Well, no, it was the second, I think. Second announcement in the, hey, they brought the Coalition out at E3, and they were like, here we go, and they showed Gears Pop right off the bat, and people were like, all right, they got us. Where's Gears 5 at? Then they showed Gears Tactics, and they're like, okay, that's cool, but where's Gears 5? And then they showed Gears 5. So, like, it kind of got buried a little bit, I want to say, that even up until a few weeks ago, people were saying, before Microsoft had to come out and say, yeah, Gears 5 is, or Gears Tactics is still on track to release. It's coming out, whatever it was, April 28th. So it's here. Yeah, it's coming. Don't worry. Like, I don't want to say the hype was down on it, but it's flown very under the radar. But I think it has. I'm more interested to see of where this takes, kind of like what the article's saying. Like, this is such a big, I don't want to say gamble, but it's a big step in terms of Microsoft's approach to gaming in general, and Xbox in general being this platform that we always talk about, where you would think something like this, they would at least do a dual release. They would do, hey, it's on Xbox and PC day one, you get the best of both worlds. Traditionally, Microsoft would be, pretty much aiming this right for, hey, this is going to be, anything they put out, it's going to be on Xbox. Like, first and foremost, for the most part, it's coming to Xbox. Oh, yeah, and then people who like, play on PC too, you can play it on PC if you want to, but, they kind of garner it towards the Xbox community, and rightfully so at times. But, it's a big, not risk, but, like, it's a big step in what they're trying to do by making a platform, by saying, no, this isn't on X. No, this is a PC game. This is the only place you can play it right now is on PC, but you can get in with Game Pass on PC, and that's, I think, such a good entryway for a game like this, that it covers a lot, but it's still very niche, to say the least. Where it's not completely StarCraft or anything like that. It's not completely Warcraft. But it's not Gears. It's not a shooter. It's not anything like that. It's just, it is what it is. It's a cornucopia of multiple things. And I think from what I've seen, it does it really well. And so far, audiences are really enjoying it. That it really makes you think, okay, for, games like, Everwild and games that are coming up that we know next to nothing about, maybe we see this on PC first. Maybe we see the next thing, the next Sea of Thieves type game from Microsoft be a PC release first. So that's what's really got. I really want to check out the game just to see, obviously, if I like it and how I want to play. I've been caught up in playing different things and work and shit like that. So, there's only X amount of hours in the day. Even with a pandemic going on and us be stuck at home, I forgot to even tell you, I started catching up on, I only watched the first 3 episodes of Dave previously, but I caught up on most of them outside the newest episode that's out last night.
Nice.
So, fucking great show, dude. The episode about Gator specifically, man, I was like, God damn, I'm crying in the club right now. Like,
yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, it was a good one. So, point being, there's only X amount of hours a day. I'm definitely going to play this. I'll probably, to be honest, while I'm editing the show after this, I'm probably going to install it just to jump in at some point, maybe later today or tomorrow. So, I am really intrigued by this. So, kind of moving past that, Mike, do you see Gears Tactic really becoming the standard bearer in the current gaming landscape for Microsoft to show that spin-off series and experiences can work, kind of like how Halo Wars did last gen, that Halo can be more, we can build upon this universe and give a different experience to cater to a different audience? Do you think, Gears is going to be that new tentpole that people point to say, well, yeah, it worked for them, it could work for this?
I think so I draw back to experience I had as a Halo fanatic pretty much all since it came out, as someone who traveled and competed in tournaments and played matchmaking online all the time and played through all the campaigns. Like, there was, the type of fans of Halo like me who was all into the multiplayer, loved the game, loved the gameplay. And then there were other fans who enjoyed the campaigns a lot, but they didn't really play the multiplayer, but they read all the books. Mm-hmm. So while Halo's been a universe that's been, assisted by fiction and things of that nature, that's something, that's a part of the Gears realm that feels like it's somewhat untapped. Mm-hmm. It definitely feels like there's a little bit of a hole there that they're trying to fill. Mm-hmm. And this Gears Tactics maneuver can potentially start pushing people into that direction, to start writing, whether it be writing fiction for it, or at least spreading the universe and trying to get their grips in the world. Because it does feel like the tires have been kind of spinning on Gears since Gears 4. So it definitely seems like this might be something that, I don't know that it's something that Microsoft has really focused on or really like pushing for their developers to add these kind of spin-off games. I think it's just something with the coalition that I think they probably just wanted to do from a project standpoint.
Mhm.
And Microsoft was like, this sounds good. Why not? Give it a whirl. You know what I mean? What's the
Yeah.
worst that can happen?
Yeah.
So I don't think Microsoft is necessarily pushing for it per se,
Mhm.
but I definitely think that they're open to the idea. And that might be the same as pushing for it in a way,
Mhm.
because if they're being open-minded about this, other developers might see this and think, hey, maybe we can kind of push in a different direction to refresh ourselves creatively. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, for sure, absolutely. I get what you're saying. I definitely see that. I'm sure there's got to be, especially with how much Microsoft has been putting an emphasis on first party exclusives and exclusives for their supported systems, including PC, obviously. Them saying, okay, we got Gears, we got Halo, we got X, Y, and Z of traditional Microsoft franchises that have been slow to release this gen. We need to change that. We need more experiences out, and that's why they went out and bought a ton of studios. But at the same time, they were saying we also need more experiences in these. We want to have fans be invested in these franchises outside of just here's a mainline game. There's room for these franchises to grow, and I think I've always thought Gears is a good one to do that. I always thought Gears was always one of the easiest. It's one of the most cinematic games that Microsoft has ever made, or series, I guess, that to me, a Gears movie, I thought Gears is always a franchise that could easily be a movie, where more lore and more avenues Gears could be in as a franchise. It always seemed like that it was very flexible in what it was. That it doesn't shock me that they did this, but I agree with, I could see them being like, okay, this work on at the same time, make sure Gears 5 looks great, and that's why who did they dish this off to? Because it was developed in partnership with Splash Damage, that's it. So being developed with Splash Damage, it kind of gave the coalition the freedom to go out, make sure Gears 5 was good and stuff, but also consult on this and make sure everything, goes great on that. They're the keeper of that franchise. So to me, that really gives flexibility to, the developers and whatnot, but I could see it being a good tentpole, at least to look back on and say, if a developer say Sea of Thieves wants to make, I don't know, a fucking kart racer game or some shit. I'm just fucking throwing two things together right now. They could go and say, well, you know what? Gears Tactics worked out. They took a gamble on that franchise. They went out of their comfort zone. We believe in this IP. We believe that this could work. We've seen our fans wanting something like this. Let's lean into it. Let's give it a roll. It gives us another, at the end of the day, it gives us more experience and more versatility to work with down the road. If we say this doesn't work out, you know what? We went out and tried it. We got some good experience from it from a development standpoint, that we could still bring something to that franchise at the end of the day. So I could see it being that. I don't think it's going to completely transcend like we talked about, but it's at least a good step in that direction. So when, while we traditionally talk about Game Pass, we normally are speaking about the console version. Most of what we talk about when it comes to Game Pass with this show, it's talking about, because we have a Xbox heavy audience. It's, primarily an Xbox show, but we talk Xbox Game Pass, and PC gaming. So, Xbox Game Pass, we traditionally are talking about the console version. But at the same time, we also have access to the PC version at one point. Adam and I know, both still do. So, what is, Mike, with your experience, what is your overall consensus with the PC version? What's the good, what's the bad, what's the awesome, potentially the ugly? What to you, I guess, even looking from a little bit broader, what to you with Microsoft and its PC approach, what do you think they need to approach better with how they handle PC gaming and from Xbox Game Pass? What with it works now, what with it you want to see changed moving forward?
I talked about it a little bit already, but the Xbox
UI.
Game app,
Yeah.
it's just so bad.
It's bad. And I've gone on this show multiple times talking about, remember all the trouble I had installing fucking MCC? Just installing it would, I had to uninstall the game 3 different times, which they they throttle, like, the app will throttle your download speeds at times. It only accepts, like, I think we have, like, supposedly we have 100 down, but you only get, like, 20 or whatever it is. It throttles you to X amount. So it takes quite a while to install, and that's time lost that, like, I want to play this game. That's why I have it set to install and update on certain times, and now I have to install and uninstall it 3 different times because it won't launch from your fucking stupid launcher. Like,
right.
So I agree with you, but continue. The UI fucking sucks.
Yeah, I think, the UI is horrible, and that might be part of that might be the fact that, the UI from the Xbox One isn't so compatible with Windows operating system as a whole.
Mhm.
That's why I think they really need to focus on, what's going on with their operating system for the Xbox Series X.
Mhm.
The UI is just so bad. The compatibility from playing with Xbox players is horrible. That's basically the entire system, if you will. So there's really not much else I can really say, but that whole thing just needs a bit of a rework, or it just needs to work a lot better. I don't know what else to say about it other than it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
I hate to be like short on it and sound down on it, but seriously, man, I don't know what else to say about it. It's just not fun.
Oh yeah, no, totally agree. And it's frustrating because you see how much money Microsoft has. You see their commitment to gaming. You see their commitment to now PC gaming, saying we want to make this platform. We want to have an experience that is across the board for everybody who just wants to be in the Xbox ecosystem, no matter what you play on. You want a scalable experience? For right now, you can go and play on PC. Do you want a plug and play experience? Here, come play on your Xbox One X or S. So, it's frustrating when you want to use one of those avenues, and just to use it properly, you're hindered by bloatware. And that's what there's so much Microsoft shit that you don't see on. And like, I've owned a MacBook Pro because it was given to us through where I went to college. It was built into they got this huge technology grant at one point. It was built into that, and we got a free MacBook out of it. So I didn't have to, I'm not going to turn away something free of that caliber, So I've always been a PC person outside of using that Mac from time to time, because I love the accessibility that PC has and the optimization and the customization that a PC offers comparative to a Mac. But at least with the Mac, there's so much less fucking bloatware. Usually the shit that they have on there, you could easily take it off, and at the same time too, it's fucking like useful. You could actually use the shit that's on there. Where Microsoft's PC garbage that they just fucking throw on Windows irritates the hell out of me. You remove half of it, and then half the time you can't remove it because it's built in there. Like, nobody wants Microsoft Edge. Nobody wants it. Nobody wants Windows Explorer. Like, nobody in their right mind, unless it's some middle-aged fucking boomer who doesn't use their fucking computer, uses it. And then whenever somebody tries to wisen them up to it, they're like, well, it was on here for a reason. No, it sucks. And I love Microsoft, but that shit sucks. Like, nobody who knows what they're doing uses Windows Explorer, or Internet Explorer, or Edge, or whatever you want to call it. And you can't get it off, because it's bloatware. Because it doesn't work. And it's slow as shit. Like, and that's how they approach their apps. Like, the Xbox app sucks. Like, it's so bad. I get it, it's only in beta, but it's been in beta forever. It's like fucking Fortnite. Fortnite's still in early access. The fuck? Like, it's not in early access. It's just out there now. Like, it's just working. It just sucks. Like, I just wish it shouldn't be that simple. Literally, all you should need for the Xbox app when it comes to PC gaming is, here are your games. You can install these. You could buy these. Enjoy. That's it. It should literally be like the Epic Game Store. Like, in all seriousness, it should have your, Xbox Live functionality built into that, but that's a given. But outside of that, that's it. It doesn't need anything flashy. It doesn't need, bells and whistles and show you videos and all that. No, just
work.
Just work. I'd much rather have something that just fucking works than tries to, like, go down on me right off the bat. Like, you know what I mean? Like, no, just work. I want to get to know you first.
Exactly.
So, no, I totally agree with you, but that's my biggest thing, that they just need to change that. They have such a good foundation as it is on what they want to do and how they're approaching this, and the cross, like, how do I want to say this? Like, cross synergy, I guess, between both platforms, like Xbox and PC, is so good right now in terms of what they want to do. And really in the video game industry in general, cross-play is becoming so, imperative that being able to take progression across multiple platforms is becoming now almost of standard, what people hope. So, to me, they're setting a base so well for it, but it's how they communicate with it, with the app, that just fucking is the ugliest shit in the world. They're doing so much good, but they're shooting themselves in the foot with this fucking app. Like, it's just bad. It's so bad. So,
it is.
Mike, let's kind of round out the conversation a little bit, and just to kind of put a bow on everything and kind of think into the future a little bit with this. And this is maybe a little tinfoil hat time. So more importantly, with how we've seen PC gaming stock really rise heavily again, being so popular in the 90s, kind of dropping off for a little bit, and then kind of being revamped really over the past, 5 years or so. And really, the past decade, I guess I should say, the PC gaming has really risen to its gates with the likes of CSGO, League, Fortnite, and now Valorant. Really, we're seeing it become a cultural phenomenon for the most part in esports. Do you ever see a time where Microsoft becomes the first pillar to pull out of the console race to just fully invest in PC gaming or a PC-like experience? Or is that just as far-fetched as it sounds? Because we know eventually console generations are going to die off, where you're just going to, and we're even seeing, hints of it this generation coming up, where you're just going to buy the Xbox, and you may get a different version of that Xbox, or you may get the Xbox and it's literally, you can go and buy the GPU upgrade that comes out 4 years down the road or whatever, and there you go, you're upgraded. And every now and then you'll get, maybe it's like a motherboard, you'll maybe get an update to your motherboard or whatever, and you could just go into Best Buy and they give you the new one or whatever, where it's going to be so much of a PC experience. Does Microsoft become that company that just says, fuck it, we're already balls deep in, personal computers and, the operating system that goes along with it. Let's just fucking master that. Let's just become the PC gaming people. You think that's ever a possibility?
I guess it's probably closer than you would think, just based on the technology standpoint of it.
Yeah.
How much further can they really push the consoles before they become little personal computers?
Mm-hmm. I mean, we already have little personal computers in our pockets anymore. So
yeah.
It's like, everybody has one. And at this point, like you said, they're basically, our consoles are so similar. Like with your PC, your gaming PC, it's basically like owning a Corvette, where your console, it's like owning a car with the biggest restrictor plate on it. That it's great if you want to get from point A to point B, but if you really want to rev it up, sorry, you're stuck.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. Whether or not Microsoft would ever just throw in the towel on the console race is a weird question, because you don't really need Microsoft besides the operating system now to build a gaming computer. Mm-hmm. So I don't see how they would ever really become relevant in computer gaming other than just their games being exclusive on PC. Mm-hmm. So for that reason, I would say it would really depend on how this generation goes for them. If they're able to get back into the console argument and, get customers to come back to Xbox with a few of their games, then I could see them staying in the console race. But as far as if Microsoft's going to really focus on the PC race, I would say their game dev studios might just make games for PC instead of console going forward. But them as a company, I wouldn't see Xbox wanting to get into PC gaming, because there's just too many other players in that are so big already. I don't know how they would really get a foothold on PC gaming other than just having games be exclusives. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. No, definitely. There's so many, obviously there's just so many constituencies that come with that, and so many unknowns and so many variables that come with that. But, the more, we look at PC gaming is the most really popular way to play games, period. Globally. In the US, no, not necessarily. Granted, everyone basically has some kind of computer, so they already have an access point, but it's very limited to what they can do compared to people who have gaming rigs and whatnot, like us, so who are at the enthusiast level, I guess. But, consoles are just the norm here, where, like we've talked about before, and you especially, Mike, who has been somebody who has played CS and FPS games and PC games at a competitive standpoint before, while we were in the US playing Mario and playing Nintendo and playing PS2 and the PS3 and Xbox and stuff like that, and playing Halo on console, over in Europe and over in the rest of the world, people were playing on PCs. They were playing in internet cafes. They were playing Counter-Strike. They were playing XYZ PC experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's one of those things that it's like, it's almost, in a similar way, and obviously want to keep politics out of this as much as possible, but it's almost that, how at the same time, like, Bernie Sanders brings up the idea of universal healthcare isn't that radical. Everyone else in the world every modern society in the world has been doing it for decades now. And for the most part, I mean, there's been people who have been bringing it in gradually, but point being, everyone else in the world has been doing this. We've just been doing it differently. And that ideology kind of applies to video games, where we've been playing consoles so heavily, almost like the Japanese market has been playing consoles for, so heavily for so long, that the rest of the world was playing PC games for a lot of it. That was one of their main forms of gaming, where it's always felt secondary until, Doom started coming out and the PC gaming got pushed so far. And then obviously whenever it comes back into, really relevance and becomes such a main form of gaming in the States in the, early 2010s again, and really until now, it's at its highest it's ever been, so it wouldn't really throw me off if one day, Microsoft just said, they see where they're trending and they said, look, we scrap the hardware manufacturing end of this, or we limit it. We switch gears and we basically leapfrog and have our PC gaming be, they release something, they get the Microsoft Store in some kind of fucking working fashion, obviously, that's on your PC. But you take a Steam approach where, hey, where Valve says, hey, here's Steam, this is the marketplace, like they kind of did with, and even Epic Games did not that long ago, hey, we have X game that is super anticipated and we want you to play it, but you got to download this first to get in with it. You have to have an account with us to get in with this, and you have to have this app installed on here. And then that gets them in the door and does all that, yada yada. But Microsoft has that, and they have the tools in place for that with Game Pass, with all these stuff, that at some point they may have it where, especially we didn't even bring xCloud into this, where some people may even just say, hey, it's PC gaming or it's xCloud. Like, that's the two options you have. If you want to play a couch experience, on your TV, cool. Throw in your, Google Chrome and you could launch, Xbox Project xCloud on there and it'll do your 4K 60 on there or whatever. You can stream it right there. But if you want, high fidelity, you want whatever, you want full control, you could, get in with us. It's through PC gaming. I'm with you. It's still far-fetched. It's not happening anytime soon. We at least got another 7 years with these consoles that are going to come out here in the fall. So it's, console generations keep getting longer and longer. So, but what does 10 years down the road look like? Do we, is everybody playing, are PCs so prevalent, especially with the rise of esports and esports becoming a staple in just professional sports in general? Where does that shake out? In literally PCs, you look at, 75% of esports, high-end esports, Overwatch League, E-League, Valorant when it comes soon out. Call of Duty's a little bit different, but you got to think potentially eventually you could see them shift to PC. So they're all played on PCs at the highest level because that offers the best fidelity, the most, you're able to tweak it and optimize it perfectly for, competition. And sometimes that's apples and oranges, but, I don't think it's irrelevant. So there's so many things that go into it. I don't, within the next, obviously we got another console generation to go through, but what's 10 years down the road look like?
Right.
That's a long time, especially in tech. My God, that's a lifetime. So it'll be interesting to kind of see where it goes to, but
maybe it'll be like Xbox branded gaming PCs, like how they have Alienware.
Exactly.
Or Asus is Republic of Gamers. Maybe it'll just be like Xbox's. Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, I just don't think it's definitely, it's not imminent, but the way that they're approaching PC gaming, the way they're approaching, their commitment to PC gaming, where it's not, you know, games for Windows Live or any of that shit. It's an actual, like, hey, we're just as balls deep in Xbox Game Pass for console as we are for PC. So, you know, we're going to commit to this. And even so, it started with whenever they did the, what was it? The Play Anywhere initiative, where you bought, you know, Gears 4, you got the PC version as well. Like, you have it. You can play wherever you want. And that was kind of the seeds for this that we're starting to see bloom into these sprouts. And I'm just curious what the full-grown oak tree is going to look like, you know, so it's going to be interesting. Definitely going to be interesting over the next, you know, decade, really, to see where gaming goes in general, but especially with the, you know, increased commitment to PC gaming just across the board in general, but more specifically in our world, Microsoft. So, Mike, I think that's going to do it for this week's show. Why don't you tell everyone where they can get you at, talk to you about PC gaming, Xbox Game Pass on PC, all that jazz, and everything we talked about today. Where can people find you on the internet?
At TOYSXLDIER on Twitter and MP_Toy Soldier on Twitch. And where can they find you at, Travis?
As always, I am your host, Travis Wade, aka Travis, on most internet platforms, including Twitter at Travels_, that's TRAVLESS_. You can also find me streaming time to time on twitch.tv/Travels_, same as Twitter. And if you want to play some video games with me over on Xbox Live, you can do so by finding me over there, just regular Travels, TRAVLESS. And that's really any spoiler, that's all my gaming platforms I play. Obviously, I'm playing a lot of Valorant, so I'm on there. You can find me Travels on there. It's officially changed. Changed it from Barry Huthole. We don't know that guy anymore. Change it from there. Same with PS4. You can find me anywhere. It doesn't, not just, but just with this show being an Xbox show, you can find me on Xbox Live Travelers, just regular Travelers. But look for me on all other platforms if you want to play video games on there. Steam, PS4, whatever. Hit me up. We'll play some video games. And as always, this has been your newest episode of the Game Pass Gamecast, your weekly go-to podcast for all things Xbox and Xbox Game Pass and PC gaming, including news, rumors, and conversation around them damn good video games. You can catch new episodes of the show when they drop each and every Friday morning on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and all other major podcast services. So be sure to subscribe to us wherever you get a podcast at, and follow us on Twitter at GPGC Podcast. Stay up to date with everything regarding the show, video games like, and our dope giveaways. And Mike, with that being said, before we wrap up this, just an update on the Assassin's Creed thing. Shocker, it is Vikings. They didn't finish it yet, but there is multiple Viking ships in there now, and it's Nordic, and yeah, it's fucking Vikings. Shocker. People have been saying that for like 2 years now. So, there you go. I'm sure we'll have insert, you know, Assassin's Creed Ragnarok or whatever you want to call it. It's a Viking game, and I'm sure it's coming out at the end of this year because we've gone a year now without an Assassin's Creed game, and I think, you know, Yves Gamont might have a heart attack if we don't. So, we got an Assassin's Creed coming later this year, I'm sure, and it's Viking themed. So, cool. As always, though, Mike, I think that's going to be it for our episode this week. Thank you, everyone, for listening, sharing, and being a part of this growing community. Game on, stay safe. Please, please, please stay safe. Be smart with everything you do right now. Listen to doctors. And for the love of Christ, wash your fucking hands. And we will see you next week.